Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advocate podcast. My name is Ryan Stark. I am an LPL financial planner, and I am here with Miss Lisa Goldkuhl. And we are amidst the coronavirus lockdown, and we're doing this podcast to kind of talk about what it's like to be parents and working right now and jumping back and forth. I'm sure we both have stories from every day, let alone today. So Lisa, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just get going from there.
Thanks, Ryan. My name
Sure.
is Lisa Goldkuhl, and I am an attorney in California. I work civil service, and I'm a supervisor of other attorneys as well. And then my husband has his own private practice that I also am a co-owner of. So yeah, in California, they actually did the shut-in pretty early. So we've been home, and I had previously had remote access, but I hadn't been working from home every day. And usually my child was not home with me, or if he was home, he was sick. So he was kind of contained, and now you have active children running around. So
Right.
yeah, it's a very good time. We definitely one of my attorneys and I were on a call the other day, and I forgot she has a child that's maybe about 4 or 5, so a little younger. My son is 10, and her son, right in the middle with the client, just sort of starts popping off. And I'd sort of forgotten about that. So then, that's where it's helpful to have 2 people, because then I was able to take over. And then by the end of the call, my child starts jumping in and, Mom, get ready for my baseball lesson. The camera's not in the right angle. So yeah, it's definitely a new world for everybody. One piece of advice I saw that I thought was really good that someone suggested the other day for working from home, if you have a child and don't have someone else spouse to care for them, which my husband's not here right now to take care of my son, though he is older. But someone said in advance, tell people, hey, I'm home with my kids, so they may be popping on. And that sort of defuses the situation in advance. And I thought that was fantastic advice, because from the conversation that we had last week with the client, I thought had the client known, it would have been a little less disconcerting than it was. It was a little more disconcerting both for me and the client, I think, because we weren't thinking about it. So suddenly hearing squawking in the background, it's like, what's going on?
Yes.
So if she just said that up front.
Yep.
It wasn't a big deal. Everyone expects it now, but it just sort of, it demonstrates you're kind of in control of the situation when you're not. So it's a little bit.
You're leading the expectation, I guess, like this could happen. And then you're right. It just doesn't come out of left field, because it does take a second. I love that you said that, because something that actually happened to me, which was somebody was calling during the market. It was like one of the 3 halts or something when the market was dropping just terribly. And somebody was saying, I'm thinking I should sell. I'm having this extremely serious conversation about somebody, and she's, talking about her mom in a nursing home, and it's like so deep. And my daughter goes to step over a pillow, and she falls and hits her face on the laptop that I'm having a conversation on. And immediately she just, and I pick her up and start rocking her. And I'm like, and I go take her to my wife, and I'm like, oh, hold on, ma'am, I'm sorry. But that would have been a perfect time for me to lead in with, I just want to let you know my daughter's here.
Totally.
Just because it was from 0 to 100% crying.
Exactly.
And I shouldn't have had the laptop on the ground and a whole bunch of other things, but still leading with the expectation was your point.
100%. And that's what I think. So the expectation is super important. And then that way also, when it goes well, if they don't interrupt, it's such a win at that point for everybody. You know what I mean? It's like you've set the expectation low so that they kind of know, okay, if we get interrupted, and, preparation for anything mentally, if we're sort of prepared for something happening and we think it's going to happen, it's much less disconcerting. And so that just, I thought, that was really great advice that somebody posted. And I think I'm going to tell the attorneys who work for me in the future, because most of them have small children, just to say, hey, if you're going to be on the phone with the client, just let them know in advance. I got to get it home. Maybe they're asleep right now, but just to let you know, if they wake up, I'll be right back. I'm paying attention, but these are the circumstances we're under, and pretty much everybody understands that, particularly right now.
Yes, I think so. And at least I hope so. I wouldn't expect anybody to, not understand, because so many people have kids, even people you're used to seeing 100% control of and in the room, and they're focused on you. I know myself, and this is something I wanted to ask you personally. I have trouble multitasking. So taking care of a life and doing something and doing my job, let alone, is something I'm focusing on. So when I'm jumping back and forth between 2 things, I almost feel like I'm doing a bad job at both, rather than really good at one. But I keep commenting and telling myself, I really think it's just about doing your best, because what else can you do?
Absolutely. And I think you make a really good point, which is that maybe this has been a world that a lot of working moms have done a little bit of, maybe not as many working dads, although I think the world's changing a little bit. But it is definitely something we've seen as working moms, and I post a lot about this on LinkedIn, is this idea sort of that if you're actively caring for your child, you're not doing as good of a job on the other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the feeling you get, and that's sort of the feeling that work imposes on you or society imposes, but I'm not sure that's 100% true, because I think a lot of times, the Pareto principle is this principle that essentially says you get your first 80% of results in your first 20% of effort. And so I do think you can, once you get a little more used to multitasking, actually get a lot more done. So basically under that principle, you could get 5 times as many things done in the same block of time if you're willing to understand that in most things, 80% is the magic number. The last 20% is really just smoothing things over, maybe for appearances or whatever. So I think once you become a little less concerned about sort of the appearance and worry a little more about the substance, what you'll find is even when you're multitasking, if you're getting the substance done well, that's really all you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think now that we're working from home, someone asked the other day on LinkedIn, they said, what's one of the benefits you see from working this whole shut-in? And I said, one of the benefits to me really is that we're going to be judged a lot more by what we produce and what we actually do than FaceTime in the office. Because it used to be you could, with FaceTime in the office, kind of cover up if you weren't doing as high a level or quality of a level. But now when we're at home, all people see is the actual substance of what we're doing for the most part.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And it's forcing everybody to communicate at a different level, I think, and be a different level of clear. And I guess it's a different style. And I guess some people are flourishing more than others. And like, I felt like I've been working from home a decent amount, but I wasn't watching my daughter. I was able to either drop her off with my grandmother or my mom, who now I'm just trying to be safe from and protect more so. So decided to take on watching her just because I can, especially because me and my wife can both do it, but it's still learning something new and developing. And I feel like it's getting better, and she hasn't hit her face on my laptop since. So that's at least, that's progress.
Exactly. There's
nonetheless.
And she also, I thought that story was going to be, she smashed her head on something and was bleeding or something. So actually I was like, oh, just the laptop.
No, it was but it's such a thin laptop. It was a straight bruise, like right where it hit at right a line. I felt so bad right after, but she was okay. And obviously, and we got done the conversation. It all worked out. And I think that's where it feels more hectic than it is, especially for the person dealing with it. The other person on the phone was probably like, okay, it's just a baby crying, and then gave me a second and went back to it. And I'm like, I wonder how she feels. I wonder if she's upset.
And I think that's a good point. And that's what I tried to, when I posted to someone who was saying, what do I do? I'm going to be home for the first time without my wife and working. And I said, really, it's kind of a matter of letting yourself relax. Because I think you're 100% right. As the person who feels like it's falling apart, your level of stress is way higher than maybe even the person who you're talking to. And I think actually in these times, their expectations are pretty reasonable. And almost everybody at this point understands there's going to be children at home. So I think actually now's the time to have those things happen, because it's not a time when you're going to get judged the same way as in the past.
Right.
So that's another one bonus, I think, of the silver lining of the shut-in is it is going to kind of level the playing field. And everybody's going to appreciate, suddenly that BBC video, I don't know if you've seen it, of the dad where he's like a BBC News consultant, and he must be being interviewed from home, but you couldn't tell until his little daughter like trots in,
like,
just to do, and then the baby comes in, and then the wife's trying to get him out. But that's the new reality. And I think even then people thought it was pretty cute, but our first instinct is like the guy and his wife to just go, oh my God, this is so unprofessional. Instead of, and a lot of the things, and I look at kind of, and this is one of the things that I got a bit frustrated about in the workplace, was that we sort of act like this is abnormal. And I'm not sure historically if it is that abnormal, if there was this big separation between work and home, because Abraham Lincoln, my son was doing a report on him, and I didn't realize he had his kids in the White House with him all the time. And they would be in his office with him. So they would say, they'd interrupt him when he was talking to his generals about the Civil War to say, hey dad, my toy soldier, has been, can you pardon him? He's been sentenced to execution. And he would sign a pardon for them and be interrupted with his generals. And I thought, that's interesting to me that one of our greatest presidents was a very active parent And
Hmm.
none of the generals said, oh, that's unprofessional, or you're not doing a good job. I'm sure it wasn't optimal to have his kids interrupting him, and I think he had a child die young, maybe, if I recall. So it sounds like it was very important to him to be a very
Right.
active, involved parent.
Right.
And it just sort of shows, yeah, it's hectic, but you can be great at your job and still have that hectic environment. And
Right.
yeah, so one of the books I've read, it's called Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a World of Specialization. And so one of the elements of that book is there's kind of two environments: a wicked environment, or I think it's called a safe environment. And the safe environment is, I think I might be getting that wrong, but it is, or gentle environment, something like that. And that environment is a very rules driven, like golf or chess, where it has very precise rules. And if you just practice exactly a certain way, you can kind of master it. And then wicked environments are environments where things change more. And what they find is over time, having that flexibility and being able to change with a wicked environment makes you a lot better, even in specialized jobs, because you're much more of an outside the box thinker. You're much more flexible, I guess less robotic in a way.
Right.
So I think now is the time when the flexible thinkers are being a lot more rewarded, or the people who can go into a wicked environment and sort of say, this is not optimal. This is not what I was trained to work in,
Hmm.
but what are the benefits?
Right. And that's great because, those are kind of people that you have to count on to adapt and adjust to certain situations. And I guess like you're saying, you don't know who's really that capable until you're shown the situation. And then you're realizing the work is still there and they're still getting calls back. And I have been letting people know, especially from my end, in terms of like, I just want to let you guys know if I take an extra day, it's because I'm watching my daughter or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not giving them the expectation of change. But I love the idea of trying to get better at adapting, because I used to think about it like it was just a personality trait. But now I'm thinking, as you're home more and I'm working from home and I'm getting better at working home, with my daughter, that multitasking, things like that, are almost like push-ups. So it's
Absolutely.
something that you're training every day and you're doing, and you're forced to excel at it at this point. But like you said, I like how this has been going, even though it's been stressful at moments. The office can be stressful too. So why
Absolutely.
why not hang out with my daughter at the same time
Totally.
and deal with that? So
And why not learn new things? And I think I was very much in the same boat with you until a few years ago, where I really believed there's smart people and there's not smart people. There's flexible people and there's not. There's multitaskers and there's not. And it's how your brain's set up. There's math people and there's not. And one of the books I read is called The Limitless Mind, and it's by a woman who studies neuroplasticity. And her whole point was, actually, it's not that way. Your brain, you can track new grooves in it. So yeah, you may inherently have a better mindset, but actually, in some ways, the more difficult something is for you, the better you can learn it. So her theory is, when something is difficult is when you're learning. When it's easy, you're not really learning it. You already have that groove and you're kind of, that neurological groove.
mhm.
But that feeling of difficulty is actually something we should embrace as much as we can. Obviously, it's frustrating, and I see that in my kid. He likes to do things perfectly. So do I.
Yeah.
But yeah, now's a time when maybe we're learning to do things in better ways, and that may serve us a lot better in the future if we can embrace it instead of resisting it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a ton of the things that are happening right now are going to stick long term. I think a lot of people are thinking about, the fact that they just had a Zoom call instead of being in the 10,000 a month, office with glass doors and things like that. And it just makes you wonder that the appearance of it all, it can be great, but when you're thinking up from overhead, or how functionality can work, or the adjustments and who you can use, and the facts that you realize a lot of your people or team, or even yourself, are capable from working from home. I think a lot of these things we're talking about are going to carry into the future and stick.
Absolutely. And I'd already seen that in the insurance industry. So I'd seen a lot of like adjusters. I'm with USAA, and one of the adjusters was telling me they all work remotely. So they just, if they have to go out and look at something, they do, but otherwise they work from home. Another guy I knew who works for an insurance company was saying that their in-house counsel works entirely from home, and it does save a lot of overhead. It allows you to hire kind of the best people from wherever. And there's a lot of advantages if companies are flexible enough to appreciate those advantages. And I think, and you probably heard this quote because it's Warren Buffett, but I love his quote that it's not until the tide goes out that you see who's swimming naked. And that's very
Yes.
true. Like
Yeah.
when the tide goes out, you kind of get to see who really steps up, who's flexible, who can kind of, I don't want to say keep control of the situation, but who really is able to roll with things and still keep things successful and smooth and working well.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes to show like how committed you are, and
Mhm.
a lot of different things. So it's nice to see this and kind of have the chance. I don't like how it's forced. And obviously I don't want people to get hurt. And I don't want a disease to spread. But one of the biggest benefits of this being stuck at home is I just constantly have like a lot of time to focus on myself and thinking a lot. And it made me think about what you were saying with stay at home or working moms is if if you're home a lot and you're keeping like the system at home running and you're raising your child, you're still kind of doing a little bit of two jobs anyway. And
Absolutely.
when you're used to doing that and working and stuff, you know, then you find that benefit and how somebody can be in the workplace. um, I think that's something that uh, will definitely like I said, carry into the future. And I was wondering with how long you've been working from home, and if you get to work from home a lot even before this happened.
So I was able to work. I have a great boss. My agency didn't give people the ability to work from home other than my particular branch that I have. I'm in a small branch of about 12 folks, 10 attorneys and 2 support staff. We had the ability, but it was sort of as needed. So if I had a doctor's appointment, and I suffer from vertigo, so if I was having some vertigo issues, I could work from home, or if my kid was sick. I've been now home for 4 weeks, just working permanently from home. And one of the advantages is it's not really as much of an adjustment as for the people from my office who never had it before, who suddenly are
Right.
trying to technology and everything and how to do this. So what we found from my branch is that it's not been much of an adjustment, other than we're not used to actually having the kids home with us and running around
Right.
during the
Right.
workday.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
normally would have been at school, but
Exactly.
yeah, it is an interesting thing. I mean, you do start to get a little stir crazy, but I think you're right. It's a great, when I start to feel that way, I really try to focus on self-improvement, because now's the
Hmm.
time. We are shut, it's sort of,
Right.
I guess maybe like I've heard about some fancy rehabs that sound, I had a friend who go to one that sounded just basically like a spa. And as a mom, sometimes you think, well, that sounds nice being,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
place where you just get to do yoga and think about yourself. And being home with a kid isn't exactly the same, but you have a lot of opportunities to read and work on other aspects.
Hmm.
I'm writing a fantasy novel, and I had just joined a science fiction fantasy novel writing group right before this happened. And it's been a good opportunity, because now I have very little excuse for not writing. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, you're home 24 hours a day. If you don't get your stuff in, what is your excuse?
And that's the other thing I love is that I feel like this is a good time for everybody's in a different situation, but you can either double down with something you're already doing if you're trying to grow. You know, you take that extra hour on something. I've been doing is taking an extra hour like on LinkedIn instead of maybe
Mm-hmm.
doing traveling or sitting at the office doing things that don't really need to be done, where you feel like you're getting stuff done, but it's just kind of
Totally.
busy
Yeah,
work.
absolutely.
Versus doing something, forcing yourself to do something like a passion that you have, which is writing that novel.
Mm-hmm.
Which definitely let me know when it's out, and I'll absolutely read it. That's cool
Yeah.
that you're writing it. Do you have any timeline for when you think that should be finished?
Well, I'm doing about a chapter every 2 weeks. So I do actually think it should be done by the end of the year. And one of the guys in my group is actually a published writer who's published like 40 books. So and
Wow.
this is where I think it's good to be open to falling into things. I was telling someone the other day, because I happened to meet the lady I was volunteering at this Sutter's Fort thing, which Sutter's Fort is a gold rush fort where my son was having a field trip. So I had to go learn to do some weaving for the overnight field trip, which was a lot of actual work. I was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize doing field trips was going to be this much work.
Yeah.
But one of the ladies there, who was the weaver, she had just mentioned, oh, she's like, I'm in a writer's group. And so I just said, hey, what's it? And she goes, it's science fiction fantasy. And I said, do you have room for new members? Because I've been trying to write for years and never really been able to get myself to finish anything. And she said they did. And then it turns out there's a couple professional writers in the group. So, and then
Wow. That's so
I
cool.
was sort of hesitant to join, but sometimes you have to make yourself do the things where you're going to have accountability. And so that's where I think
Yes.
LinkedIn also gives me some accountability, because one of the things there is I have a fair amount of friends that I've met there on there. And I do feel like I do want to see their posts. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to learn from them and comment and and, sort of influence where culture on LinkedIn is going.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the lessons. And this is why I think it's so great being a parent in some ways, although difficult, but one of the things is I always tell my son, because he'll say, I'm bored, because he's an only child. I'm bored. You can do something with me. And I'm like, I can't be playing with you 24 hours a day. And so I'll say, if he's bored, I go, if you're bored, do something productive, because you're already bored. So you might as well do, if you're not happy, do something else that doesn't make you happy, and make use of that time.
That's a good
point. You're not having a good time. But it's forcing me to do that too. So if I have extra time, I'm like, okay, well, it's not like I'm doing something fun. I might as well do something productive, because why waste the time?
Right. You know? And then you either get something done, or you realize, oh, I do have something fun I can go do. Never mind. Exactly. I don't want to do the laundry.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. If you're going to be miserable, you might as well double down and get something done out of it. Why not be twice as like, what's the difference? Half the misery, twice the misery. It's all some level of misery. But these are the times we're really learning. We're home with our kids, so there's a lot of frustration. And I think it's also good for our kids to see us working. Like with Abraham Lincoln.
Oh yeah. That's another good point. I love that too. Is now my daughter's 1.5, so how much she'll remember, I'm not sure, but it still is the concept I like of seeing that it's possible to just to show her a different way, and to say that you can build your life this way, and it is okay to do it like that. You don't have to sit in an office from 9 to 5. That's always been my thing that I didn't like to do, and one of the reasons I became a financial planner, just because I got to pick my own schedule and meet with people in the morning, and then have my lunch, with my wife or something, and then meet with somebody else, and then go home for dinner or something. You just get to plan your whole day and get as much done as you want to. And I've always liked that, and I think that prepared me for this situation too. And I don't know, I feel like it sounds like how you've been building yourself has prepared you for this as well.
Absolutely. I've never liked the very 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, because my thought on it is, and if you read a lot of books, everybody's productive at different times and in different ways. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that we're all on the exact same schedule. And once you have a kid, you're probably well aware of this, because when I had my kid, I read this book about how to get them sleep trained in 10 weeks, and he's going to sleep in his own room. And that did not happen. And what I realized is that's crazy, because everyone is different. So every baby's not going to be, why would one path for every baby work to get the same result? And it's kind of the same with people. And that's sort of my management style at work, is whatever works for you. I don't really care when you get your work done or how you get your work done. I just want to see good work in a timely manner and so forth. So that's what I'm going to help you work on. But we're all grown-ups. So, at some point, unless I'm in a job like a receptionist where I do need to be the face, I've never understood why I would need to be in from 8 to 5. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Exactly. 100% too, especially because, maybe I have dinner or something with my daughter, and then get to put her to bed, and then I shoot a couple emails out. So somebody will see emails at 9 or 10 or something like that. Or maybe I got to spend a little extra time with her in the morning because I chose to, and switched it up. As long as the information wasn't pertinent, I was always fine with just making sure they got it. But if it wasn't right at the right time, and planning that has been pretty great. Just looking also, I guess just finishing up, what's I love everything you said. What's one piece of advice I guess you'd give everybody who is struggling and doesn't feel prepared for something like this, and is dealing with their kid for the first time? What are some, I guess, mindset things you should think they should get into, or how they can mentally prepare, because this could last another month or even longer. So it's something that, you shouldn't just be holding your breath through. I think we should be working to get better at this. What would you say to them?
Absolutely. What I would say, and I think this is something that somebody triggered me to the other day, because I was complaining about someone I was working with who was being sort of difficult. And she's in a similar position in Kentucky where she works. And what I realized is we're all under a lot of stress. And so what we have to recognize is our children aren't going to be their best selves, because this is stressful for them. We're not going to be our best selves. Our spouses aren't going to be our best selves. So we have to have a certain amount of compassion for both ourselves, our spouse, who we're living with, and our children, and who we're working with, and just recognize, look, there's going to be some spout offs. There's going to be times, I posted the other day, I told my kid I hated him for the first time, which was not my best moment, but I'd hit my knee on something really hard, and he was jumping up and down and laughing at it. And as I'm hopping on one knee, and he's laughing and pointing, and he's a little bit of a jerk. And so I just said, I hate you. And he said he hated me twice the week before. And so, and immediately I thought, that was a terrible thing to say. So I said, I'm so sorry, sweetie. I don't mean that. Of course I love you. But I said, look, mommy's, under a lot of pressure. And also I said, we all have our moments. We're not our best. So, and
Right.
also maybe I hate you if you're upset at me isn't the best thing to say, because now you do know how it feels. And so a lot is just recognizing, instead of having that immediate guilt spiral, oh, I'm a terrible parent, you know, or like when your daughter hit her head and is crying, it's like, you know, feeling terrible about it, is just to go, okay, you know what, this is the new normal. And it's a really an opportunity to exercise kind of compassion for myself and everybody around me, and just to sort of laugh at it then later and go, okay.
Right.
You know, my kid laughed. He goes, let's talk about so-and-so who we both hate. And now I'm like, okay, that sounds good. But yeah, it's really an opportunity to not be our best selves, but not judge ourselves. So let go of perfectionism, because perfectionism right now is going to kill you. I mean, that literally will be the thing that kind of breaks you.
Yeah.
So we got to be, like I said, compassionate for ourselves, our kids, everyone we live with. And that's the biggest thing we can work on if we want to be happy and kind of get through this, I think.
Yeah. I'll listen to that as well, because although I've been understanding that, I think you still go through the motions, and sometimes you don't catch yourself when you realize you're doing it over and over, and you're saying, I know what situation we're in, but I'm still trying to accomplish this today. And when I've already set the expectation, when of course my daughter is going to do whatever she wants throughout the day, I think she's going to, you know, I set something up because I think she's going to sleep from 12 to 3 like she usually does. And I was like, I don't even know why I thought she would nap appropriately. That was just, you know, I'm setting myself up for failure. So being realistic, but not being hard on yourself. Yeah, I think is the best advice right now.
Well, and a toddler like that is going to test, because they never do, like the expectation, they change from week to week. So, I mean, scheduling it for that 3-hour period, that's the best you can do. And so a lot now is like, we do our best, and we have to really, you know, there's a book called The Four Agreements. I can't remember who it's by, but, and the fourth one is do your best, but recognize your best is going to change. So if you're sick, your best isn't going to be the same. Under these circumstances, our best is not going to look the same as our best is when we're at the office and we don't have children and things are perfect and no one's under any stress, and, you know, right. It's just recognizing we do our best, and then we kind of move on from that, and we accept that.
I guess it's not a level of output. It's more of just a mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good way. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and end it there. And is there anything else, any other tips or anything else you wanted to throw out, I guess, to any stay-at-home moms specifically, or anything else you wanted to shout out before we head out?
No, I just say, I think stay-at-home moms, just it's your opportunity to shine right now, because this is the time you've kind of been preparing for, you know, your whole life is like, you're prepared for this. Your kids have gotten you ready. So it will feel hard, but you're ready for this.
Yeah. And I'll just say thank you to you and everybody else for all moms. And I've been saying thank you to my mom over and over for not getting enough credit for when you watch your child for 24 hours a day, and then you also try to get things done. It's completely different than when you get those breaks. The office is a different personality feel. It's a different everything. And you don't realize what it's like to wake up, the dishes are full again. So I have to do them every 2 days, or you don't get to cook because I can't put them anywhere, and I don't. And then you're doing, and then you realize laundry's built up everywhere. And I thought I was doing a good job taking care of her, and I forgot to do everything for the house because I was doing emails. So it's all over the place, and it's definitely it's a third job for sure. So something I'm learning now, and I think something a lot of stay-at-home dads and dads in general are, you know, like you were saying, getting more involved in dealing with this. So I'm going to keep asking you questions, and I'll reach out if I'm ever having trouble and get your mom expertise so I can work through it.
Well, I'm 8.5 years ahead of you. I have to say, at year 1, I stayed home with my son for the first year. And then at year 1, I was like, I have to go back to work because I love my child 22 hours a day, but 24, it's a little much. So,
that's great. That's great. That's a good point. I always said, by the time I wake up, you have 12 to 14 hours of good dad. And then I'm not sure. Yeah. So then, if you're not sleeping by that point, it's like, I'm not sure how it's going to be. We're all
Exactly. It's going to be Mr. Hyde at that point, because there is the point where, like, my patience, I do have a certain amount, and that muscle has been exercised, and it's not going to be ready again until tomorrow. So you better load up on that patience now, kid, or go to sleep. But 4 years will be easy. 4 years is the magic age. So just hold out for another 2.5.
Yeah.
We got.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll do this again. I love your content on LinkedIn and talking back and forth. So I'm sure we'll keep going back and forth. And again, thank you so much
Absolutely.
for doing this for me.
Well, thank you. I love your post on LinkedIn too. So thanks,
Thank
Ryan.
you. Thanks.